twentyonepilots' music video for Paladin Strait depicts the events of the battle between the bishops of Dema and the Banditos led by Clancy. The video is full of lore-related signs and symbols which have been examined and analyzed to no end, but one key detail remains strangely overlooked, despite its major significance. When the bishops, using their vultures as surveillance, spot the army of the Banditos approaching the walls of Dema, they use their power to raise up the undead vessels from beneath their neon gravestones. And it is this army which they send out against the attackers, not any citizens. But when Clancy is able to slip away from the fighting and sneak into the city of Dema, he finds it completely deserted, except for the bishops up in their tower. Now, this is significant for two reasons. Firstly, we know that there are citizens who are alive and living inside Dema. We in part know this because that is the whole point of Clancy's attack on the city. He's trying to free those who have been unable to escape from vialism and the rule of Nico. We also know this, however, because it is confirmed throughout the series of letters which were released as part of the Clancy Tour's FPE exhibits. But the deserted streets of Dema are significant for a second, much more interesting reason. Not only did those FP letters confirm that there are citizens still in Dema, they also revealed the existence of armed guards. Living guards, not the resurrected vessels of the glorious gone. One of these, named Kinton, is even described in a letter which was written to him by a member of the growing resistance inside Dema. The letter writer, named Jarita, wrote the following. "I was the girl that put the yellow flower in your pocket as you stood guard. We notice you daily, and you stand at your post, solid as a statue, day after day." So the question must be asked, where did all these people go? Not just in regards to the citizens of Dema, but especially concerning the guards of Dema, who you would assume would be assembled and ready to fight against the army which is invading their home. Now, you may ask, if the citizens of Dema are so oppressed by the bishops, why would they want to fight against the Banditos? It is a fair question, and perhaps not all of them would. But let us consider for a moment what we know about the structure of Dema and the mindset of those who live within it. The city is assembled in a top-down manner, with Nico at the head and the other bishops under him. Each bishop rules over their own section or village of the city. Now, while the citizens, including Clancy, might grumble against the general leadership of Dema as a whole, they are generally fond of their own bishop and want to do well by him. And, generally speaking, that bishop also seems to have some level of care for his own citizens, as we see in the relationship between Clancy and Keon's, and again in another letter between Nils and one of his followers. So even if the citizens of Dema are beginning to wake up to the fact that vialism is evil, they are still only slowly realizing this, and Dema is still their home. It would be foolish to assume that years of what I suppose you could term as propaganda or mind control, or even just the general instinct to protect your home and your friends, could be so swiftly removed that they would be unwilling to fight against the invading army of the Banditos. Now, it might be fair to say that the bishops were worried that enough citizens would be willing to fight against Dema, that they just locked them all up, using the armed guards to keep them in, while the undead vessels now seized provided the defense of the city. But I think a simpler and more straightforward explanation has been provided to us. On May 29th, the Twitter account, which appears to be run by Blurryface, began posting a series of cryptic videos with a mysterious voice slowly speaking over them. Most likely these are lines to the upcoming song The Contract, and with the most recent tweet, the words we have read as follows. "I check the doors, I check the windows, I pull the blinds. I check the clock wondering what he will pull this time. I have a feeling that the necromancer is outside and I'm just trying to stay quiet. I want to get out there, but I don't try." Now there certainly are some interesting and important elements to this which I'll dive into in a moment, but firstly, how does this relate to what we were just talking about? Well, despite the fact that these lines are delivered in the first person, many of the elements of the videos which have been released sound like they could be part of a broadcast announcement. The sound effects, the robotic quality of the voice, and so on. We know that Dema has a television broadcasting system, so it is far from unlikely that these could be messages which are being sent out to the citizens, telling them to stay inside, close their windows, stay quiet, and hidden, because the necromancer is on his way. If so, that could explain why the streets of Dema are so utterly deserted when the Banditos arrive. But there is another interesting aspect to these tweets and the posts which 21pilots are making on their official band account to tease this upcoming song. and that is the continued inclusion and reference to the minute of silence from Paladin Strait. Remember, that pause, that break in the song, was absent from the music video. And when the video first came out, it was assumed that the silence was cut for the purpose of pacing and the narrative structure, which certainly does make sense. But it is also not entirely impossible that something happened during that minute of silence, something which we will get to see with this new song, but which we weren't originally supposed to or ready to see when Paladin Strait first came out. This is purely speculation, of course, and there's very little to back it up, but I do think it is interesting that they have been repeatedly pointing us towards a moment of the song which was so noticeably cut from the video. Now, before I close out this video, there's one more point of great significance which must not go overlooked. Who is the Necromancer? This figure is mentioned in the lines from the Blurryface videos, but it is not someone who has been clearly defined in the lore up until this point. Does it simply refer to Clancy and his march on the city of Dema? Certainly, he does now possess the same power that the bishops wield, and it is very unlikely that they are unaware of this after his demonstration of his abilities and overcompensate. And it would be a useful tool for propaganda for the bishops to declare Clancy as a necromancer, especially after using him as a tool, and then losing him and declaring him dead. For Clancy to return from the dead after that declaration either makes the bishops liars, or Clancy an evil necromancer. Another idea is that perhaps the necromancer could refer to Josh. The last time we saw him in Paladin Strait was before that minute of silence would occur, so perhaps he took advantage of Clancy's foray into the tower to make a secret attack of his own inside the city. And as Tyler mentioned in the livestream premiere of the Clancy music videos, there's more to the Torchbearer's power than has been fully demonstrated to us. And perhaps the power that we do see him having in navigating is the kind of power that a necromancer would have. Or perhaps these lines are from Clancy's perspective, and the figure in question here is Nico the Necromancer, the ruler of the bishops of Dema, and the one which Clancy was unable to overcome in Paladin Strait, despite having defeated the other 7 bishops. Or maybe, just maybe, it is someone else entirely. Someone who represents a power beyond even the power which the bishops possess. A power in which they participate and draw their strengths. A power which instituted vialism and taught them the ways of seizing. A power which they answer to and serve. And a power of which they are deathly afraid. But that is for next week's video. With that being said, thank you for watching, and be sure to comment your own thoughts on these theories and speculations below. Who do you think the Necromancer really is? And don't forget to subscribe for more music commentary and reviews.